I wasn't even up for 5 minutes when I saw I had a notification from that Star Wars girl declaring this the most stupid tweet she's ever read. So I decided I'd grab a cup of coffee and see how just far down to Wonderland this rabbit hole goes. I was talking to a pal about why game narratives are sort of samey and lack moral fiber. A lot of this has to do with production constraints, but a huge chunk is the lack of diversity among successful narrative devs. Here's what the problems are and how you can help. I like how she states what the actual reason probably is, production constraints, and then decides to say, but no, most of it is this thing I'm most likely making up. I'm not going to provide any evidence, but you should just trust me. Paid narrative gigs are extremely hard to get, and 90% of the time you get them from knowing the right people. Anyone who has taken any form of an acting class in college will know that that is the case for just about anything. And they tell you it's not what you know, it's who you know. That can apply just about everywhere. Marginalized devs tend to have less access to powerful white male networks. Accessing powerful people also requires us to place ourselves in unsafe situations. I'd like to know how the situations are unsafe. Also, why do you automatically assume that you have to be white and male? Again, no evidence to support this. I know I'm reading a little fast. This is like 22 tweets, so I just want to get through them without the video dragging on too long. If we try to network ourselves and we don't look like devs to established devs, we can't get a job if senior devs don't think we're real creators. It's also hard to advocate for yourself if devs are making sexist jokes over the appetizers. Happened to me at a large studio. I'm sure it did. Everyone who's always complaining about this stuff always has this, oh, it happened to me type of situation. Well, sure, I will not deny that maybe someone made a sexist joke around you. I've heard plenty of racist jokes. I've heard more racist jokes from my friends than I probably have from actual racists. But the thing you gotta understand is that one, words cannot hurt you. You just gotta learn to fucking ignore the stupid people. And two, people are always so quick to point out that the ones who's like, oh, I've never experienced that. And they're immediately shot down with, well, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist and that that's not how everyone else experiences things. Well, the exact same applies to you. Not everyone else is going to experience your shitty situation. It's just as equally possible that you are in the minority in that. Studio jobs often demand screenwriting experience from game writers. If you look up TV/film diversity reports, you'll see that women and people of color writers get glass ceiling there too. Yet the industry will often hire from TV/film instead of Twine/tabletop RPG, more diverse. Okay, they probably hire more from TV and film because, well, that's a larger audience. So if you wrote something for film or TV and it was successful with more people. So it's more likely that you could write something that will be successful for a large audience. Again, it has nothing to do with your sex or the color of your skin. Game writer organizations tend to be overwhelmingly white and male, and the masculine atmosphere within those groups can be demoralizing for marginalized genders/people of color. I'm glad you're here to speak for all these people and just about how fragile and weak they are. How many black women do you know of who live in the Bay? Austin, Texas, Seattle, Washington? I don't know. I always sucked at the abbreviations for states. That's exactly what I thought. Serious diversity initiatives will open their writer jobs to remote work. Otherwise, you're limiting your pool to upper middle class white devs. If you want to get into a certain field, it's probably important that you move to where those jobs are available. That's all there is to it. It is not an industry's job to make sure that you live somewhere where this is easy, where it's easier for you to do. No, you've got to put in the effort, and it's as simple as that. This is a general game writer problem, but we don't have established pipelines for juniors to get into game writing. We have writers who do pro bono mentoring, but this isn't enough. Most studios want to hire Chris Avallone instead of investing in the talent pipeline. Okay, I don't know who Chris Avallone is. Okay, yeah, he had worked in the Fallout series. Yeah, I'd want to hire him too. Makes perfect sense to want to hire someone who you know has succeeded. What this means is that companies keep trying to hire the same 10 narrative devs who got their lucky break in the industry 20 years ago. That pool of people isn't very diverse because computer access was more limited back then. Women plus queer narrative devs tend to work more in the mobile space. Anyone who works in mobile can tell you that's a low prestige field that does not secure your next gig, the way that working on Destiny or Skyrim does. Mobile devaluation has everything to do with sexism. I highly doubt that. So when Blizzard announced that they were making a mobile game and the crowd was upset, you think they were upset because they were all sexist and not because, they just weren't interested in mobile games. Most hardcore gamers don't do mobile games. That is primarily a female field, which I believe most studies actually show that women are more likely to be playing mobile games, so it makes sense that mainly women would get into development for them. It's so hard to get funding as an indie narrative designer. Every time I did, it was through an affirmative action diversity program. That doesn't mean that my games are bad, that just means that affirmative action is the only reason that I have a career. That doesn't speak well for you, I'm sorry. CC, this is depressing and I want games other than war crime simulators. What can I do? I'm glad that you asked. Strap in. Do you prefer tea or coffee? Well, coffee, but something tells me I don't want anything you're making. You have to genuinely believe that marginalized devs are capable of making better games than what's already out there. You know what? I think the only one here in this discussion who doesn't believe that is you. A marginalized dev shows you a portfolio of unpublished wines, you gotta handle it like unpolished diamonds, otherwise you can't advocate for them. So I just have to naturally assume that what they have are diamonds? Give their work a chance, even if you think it's too niche to succeed. Remember that fresh work will always press up against existing audience expectations plus taste. I mean, I'm assuming that you want story games that aren't just what's already out there. I feel a strong urge to mention The Last Jedi here, but we're gonna move on. Allies always advocate for paid narrative internships, relocation packages, and remote work. There's no point in putting up a job posting of marginalized people welcome if they can't afford to move to San Francisco. I'm sorry, that's their problem. If you work at an indie studio where you truly can't afford a writer, advocate for allocating a consulting budget. Consulted on popular indie game is still a bigger resume booster for narrative devs than nothing. You're laying the groundwork for a future career. Game narrative will never change if your studio only wants to hire the most famous white dude writers. Why do you assume that they are specifically like, alright, we need a writer. Is this person white? Alright, let's get them. Maybe they just want good writers. You ever think about that as what the priority should be? They're already the tastemakers for what the players think of as a game story. Focus on nurturing the careers of game writers who manage to stay in despite the ceiling. Or maybe just focus on getting good story writers. I really don't like how you're relating all of this to skin color and sex. Be open to non-traditional game writing backgrounds. If a writer has worked with any kind of game logic, they can probably figure out your system pretty quick. Take off as many hiring requirements as possible and learn how to evaluate. Are you insane? Are you crazy? So yeah, just lower your requirements as to who you give the job to so that way more people can get it, even if it's not necessarily what you want. Fire Emblem Three Houses is a contender for Best Narrative Design of 2019, and half of it was a visual novel. Be open to evaluating interactive fiction, otome, whatever, games, bitsy twines, and mobile games. Don't tolerate anyone talking shit about mobile as a genre. It's not a genre, isn't it? I have a feeling that this person makes it primarily mobile games because they are greatly advocating for it. If you don't have the money to contribute to Patreons, Ko-Fi, PayPals of marginalized narrative devs, take an active interest in their work. Keep up with their games, play them, and ping them about opportunities within your own network. Tell them if their work is awesome. If their work is good enough, that'll happen on its own. You don't need to be telling people to do it. That is what should naturally happen. Diverse narrative design requires more money than the industry is currently investing in marginalized designers. That's an immutable fact. I highly doubt that. Everything I said here is an effort to direct financial resources into the hands of marginalized devs, and this should also be your end goal. No, it shouldn't be. Your goal should not be to get money to people solely based on their skin color and their gender. That is racist. That is sexist. You are racist and sexist. If you're a white dude in a writer group of mostly white dudes, you should voice your discomfort about that. Why? Who the hell cares? If they're making good quality product, that is all that matters. I know that feels scary, but it's the prerequisite of trying to create professional networks that work for everyone. They do work for everyone. Meritocracy. We need to see white males as writer narrative rooms as an extreme abnormality, and they are. That is sexist and racist. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Feel free to tip me if this thread has been useful to you. And she takes the time to ask for money and also advocate her own game, Lion Killer. Gay Mulan set during the First Opium War. And the funny thing is, if this whole thing had just been her talking about her game, I would actually be quite interested in that. And matter of fact, gay doesn't even need to really be in there. Mulan, set during the First Opium War. That's pretty interesting. I want to know more about that. Not now, because I think you're a total asshat, but I digress. Some of the comments: diversity for sake of diversity does not make for a good game. Story, character development, and gameplay are all key and crucial to make a good game. You are correct. Explain to me, please, what lacking moral fiber has to do with skin color. I agree. And here's just the icing on the cake. Red followed: I want to get into game writing, but I'm afraid doing so will hedge out someone with less privilege. Do you have insight or advice for someone who wants to write creatively but doesn't want to prevent someone else from getting a job? I have this exact same worry about pushing out Black/Indigenous devs. Use your presence to promote their work. Speak up about bad hiring practices. Find a bi person of color replacement if the panel that you're speaking on is too homogenous. And then someone else points out this is textbook white savior complex. Yes, it is. That is just incredibly gusting of you to just assume that you are naturally going to get a job over someone who is not white, or in the first person's case, not male. That is sexist and racist. That you just think your work is naturally better than theirs, that they need help from you specifically, and that they can't succeed on their own. Screw you! But yes, I am in full agreement with Anna here that this is just one of the most ridiculous things ever. I legitimately have trouble understanding how some people think this way. It makes no sense to me. Alright, well, I'm gonna edit this video and try and get it up by noon, so everyone have a nice day.